Hey, Damien here. I've put together my most powerful mindset lessons so far in this one video. These are the mindset tips cricketers have said changed how they think, train, and perform. Watch it right through, and you just might find that one gold nugget that completely transforms your game. Hope you enjoy. You don't need new gloves, you don't need new technique, and you don't need a new bat. Although a new bat would be really good. But what you do need are 3 mindset shifts that a lot of cricketers just simply don't make. Hi, I'm Damien and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I simply help batsmen overcome their self-limiting beliefs so they can perform to their potential out on the field. Because when I was a young batsman, I had self-limiting beliefs that restricted me. And once I overcame those, my results on the field certainly improved. So if you're a batsman who scores your 20s or 30s, self-critical of yourself, overthinking, hard to stay focused, stick around because this video will certainly be what you're looking for. I used to think my biggest problem was my technique. I would go and look at other batsmen who were scoring runs and see how they would bat. I might even change my stance, I changed my grip, but all those things were wrong. I was kind of doing the wrong things. What I should have been doing was changing my mindset and way of thinking, because that wasn't growing with me. That was just holding me back. I mean, look at Steve Smith, for example. His technique, completely unorthodox. His mindset, absolutely relentless. This guy knows himself. He knows his strong points, he knows his weaknesses, and he knows what he's capable of. Now, that didn't just happen overnight. That's something that he worked on. You could actually see this guy over the years completely change his whole demeanor, his whole mindset for the better. So think about your own journey. You know, you might be a batsman who only scores 20s or 30s, but there may have been a couple of times where you did score a 70 or a 60 or whatever it might be. That wasn't luck. That was a mindset shift, even if it was for a small period of time. But that just shows that you are capable of that. What you're wanting to do is to shift that mindset so it's more consistent with you and your identity. So if you're keen to look at that, let's stick around and let's jump into that now. So the first mindset shift is self-judgment to self-awareness. Now, self-judgment is simply your negative self-talk, and we all do it. So when you go out for a low score or you haven't performed to your expectations, what are you saying to yourself? I bet it's something like, I'm useless, I'm hopeless, or that always happens to me, or here we go again. And it probably doesn't help if it's reinforced by other people as well, whether that's a coach, a parent, or a teammate. You know it, this is what happens, and I'm not telling you something that you don't know, and I'm not telling you something that can't be fixed either, because it can be fixed. Because when you're self-aware, you learn. When you self-judge, you go into a spiral, and you know it just manifests. So next time things like this happen, you go out for a low score, be curious about it. Work out what went on, rather than beat yourself up, because that's not going to serve you any good whatsoever. Now, the second mindset shift is going from motivation to identity. Now, in cricket, we hear a lot about motivation. All right, but motivation fails under pressure. Under pressure, you fall back to your identity, and that's what you believe about yourself. So motivation's like having an energy drink on the Saturday morning or just before the game. It'll get you up for that short period of time, but then you'll come crashing down. So you cannot rely on motivation. It's your identity and what you believe about yourself that really matters. So if you believe you're just a 20s batsman, that's what you'll score, regardless of how fired up you are. But when you start shifting that belief to, I'm a batsman who finishes games, that's when the mind really starts to shift. So the shift is, stop relying on motivation and work on your identity and your beliefs about yourself. Because we don't play to our goals, we play to our beliefs. And the third mindset shift is from being in your comfort zone to a growth zone. In your comfort zone, we just maintain what we're comfortable with. You know, for example, you might get to training and there's an opportunity to face the fast bowlers. They've now got new balls. or you can go in the medium pacers net or the spinners net. So if you choose the latter, well, that's keeping you in your comfort zone. But if you're choosing the pace bowlers with the new ball, that's stepping out of your comfort zone. So you don't grow when you stay in your comfort zone. You grow when you step out of your comfort zone. So every elite cricketer now talks about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Makes sense, doesn't it? So you've got to really shift your mindset there to step out of your comfort zone, put yourself in uncomfortable situations to become comfortable in those. I know it's a bit of a tongue twister, but it makes sense. It's the only way you grow. You can stay what you're doing, get to training and just do the comfortable things. But then you can't get to a Saturday or a match and expect success. It doesn't happen that way. You've really got to work on that. And it's continuous stretching your comfort zone. So Tuesday night, you might just face the fast bowlers for a period of time. Put yourself in that situation. So there's the 3 mindset shifts. But let's put that into action. Write down a positive affirmation. Now, affirmations are simply a statement of belief about an outcome that you want that probably hasn't happened yet. So an affirmation could be, I am a calm, confident batsman and score runs consistently. So that's just a basic one to write down to work on. You could have your own as well. Second thing is, I want you to now assess your outcomes, say for the next 2 to 3 matches. So be very conscious of what you say to yourself. And I want you to stop that if it creeps in, but question things. Why did that happen? What can you do next time about that? So just be very conscious about your performances of the next, say, 2 to 3 matches. And thirdly, when you get to training, put yourself out of your comfort zone. Now that could be going in the fast bowlers' nets and asking them to bowl short balls at you, all right? Not to punish you or anything like that, but just to get you out of your comfort zone. That might be an example. Another example might be you go into the nets and the consequence of you, say, going out is you're out. That's your session done. So that puts a lot more on the line in terms of your batting. The other thing might be to no warm-up, straight into the nets and start batting and have that consequences. If you go out, you're out. So you really want to take yourself out of your comfort zone, all right, intentionally, and just see how you feel about that. So there are 3 things. Write down the positive affirmation, assess, say, the next 2 or 3 games just to see how your performances went. And thirdly, at training, get yourself out of your comfort zone. Try some other things that you're not comfortable with. Let me say this out loud and clear. You are meant to fail at cricket. But the problem isn't failure. The problem is how you actually deal with that failure. So say you go out for a low score and you're trudging off the ground, and your negative self-talk is probably going 1,000,000 miles an hour, saying things like, I always fail against this team. I just can't handle the spinners. Or I always stuff up and let the team down. If your self-talk is heading in that direction, you're heading in a downward spiral. So it's being able to convert failure from a mindset point of view and turn that into feedback. I remember watching Greg Chappell as a young kid, and he went through a series against the West Indies where he scored 4 ducks in a row, and I think it was 7 ducks throughout the whole series. And I could always remember, I can remember it now, just feeling how much stress he would have been under, his self-talk, what that would have been doing. And recently I came across an interview with Greg Chappell, and he talked about that slump that he had against the West Indies. And what he said was just amazing. He basically said that he sat himself down in his hotel room or bedroom, wherever he was, in darkness, and for about 2 to 3 hours, he went through every innings that he could remember that he'd played, whether it was in the backyard, whether it was at school, whether it was club cricket, first class cricket, test cricket. And he went through those innings and he found out that on the good days, he was following a routine. So when he scored runs, he was following a set routine. But on the bad days, he wasn't following that routine. he was able to work out that 9 out of 10 innings that he faced were, when he went out, was because of him. And he did say that, yes, there was the occasional good ball, good fielding or whatever, but majority of times he was dismissed, it was his doing. And he worked out that it was basically not a technical error, it was more so much a mental error. And once he identified that and was able to work on that, his results certainly changed. Now, here's the mindset shift that all batsmen need to understand, is that failure is feedback. So if you've got beliefs that you're not a high run scorer or you fail under pressure, well, your creative subconscious mind is going to look for examples or look for outcomes or look for performances that confirm those beliefs about your ability. That's its job. That's what it's designed to do, is to keep you safe and keep you in line with what you believe about yourself. Now, I have mentioned before in previous videos, yes, there's going to be occasions when, if you have this belief that you're not a high run scorer and you score a 60 or a 70, well, yes, that can happen for that short period of time. So that just proves that it can work and you can exceed your beliefs in that area, but it's something you really need to work on. But as far as failure goes, we need to adopt the failure is feedback approach. And once you do that, that's when you start to grow. That's when the beliefs really start to change. As I was doing the research and having a look at this key area about failure and trying to turn that into feedback, I looked at some statistics. And what I came across is, it's incredible. So we've got Ricky Ponting and Sachin Tendulkar. So Sachin Tendulkar, highest test run scorer in history, and Ricky Ponting is second. Listen to these statistics. Sachin Tendulkar, in all his test innings, he scored over 50 just 36.6% of the time. Ricky Ponting passed 50 in just 35.9% of all his test innings. That means he failed in 64% of his innings. But all we do is remember the centuries. We don't remember the fails. Isn't that interesting? When I came across that statistic, I was like, wow, right? And here's something incredible I saw the other day was an interview. It wasn't an interview. It was Roger Federer, the famous tennis player, giving a talk at a university. And this was incredible as well. So it said, this is what Roger Federer said. He said, in 1,526 singles matches I played, I won almost 80% of them, but I only won 54% of the points. That means I lost 46% of the points I ever played. Wow. But this next part is gold. Roger Federer went on to say, when you're playing a point, it has to be the most important thing in the world, and it is. But when it's behind you, it's behind you. That's the mindset, ball by ball, point by point in terms of tennis. So not carrying that failure with you, but basically learning from it. And linking back to the Greg Chappell history there, what he learned was that concentration was working on one ball at a time. And he realized that, okay, if I could concentrate on one ball at a time, I could easily concentrate for 1,000 balls. And the reason he could do that is that he only needed to concentrate on one ball at a time. And here's how you turn that failure into growth. So, number one, you need to reframe failure into feedback. So that stops you from hitting into that self-talk spiral downwards. So something you could actually say to yourself is, this isn't failure, this was feedback. And you use that one sentence to stop that loop and to stop that downward spiral of negative self-talk. And the second thing is, after each dismissal, assess what went wrong. What were you thinking at the time? What did you do well, even though you did fail, but what did you do well? So ask yourself those questions and don't skip this action here, is assessing what you actually did during that dismissal, what your thoughts were. Number three is to, if you haven't already, develop a between balls routine. This is highly important, highly critical to your success. So it might be tapping your bat, flicking the pad, touching your helmet, whatever it might be, but you need a between ball routine. Because if you do get under pressure from a bowler, your self-talk can head you in that downward spiral. You need to reset and get back on task, all ready for the next ball. So you might say something like, new ball, new opportunity. So keep replaying that in your mind as well. Because as Roger Federer said, as Greg Chappell said as well, once that ball's gone, it's in the past. So nothing you can do about it. So you need to concentrate for that next ball. So that in-between ball routine. And the last action to do is your affirmations and visualization. This is how you change your mindset. So you may have affirmations such as, I am calm and composed when facing fast bowlers. I am calm and perform well under pressure. But visualize that as well as you're reading your affirmation, you're visualizing that. I actually saw a YouTube video this morning, done a few years ago with Kevin Peterson. And he was talking about his mindset and his mental routine, that the night before a match, he would lay in his bed and literally visualize himself facing the bowlers that he was due to face the next day. So this is what these guys do. They visualize, they have goals, and they write down their affirmations. They don't just wing it by skill and luck. It just doesn't work that way. If you can overcome the obstacles that we all do possess with our mind, wow, sky's the limit. It really is the limit. You've probably heard people say, just use affirmations. Tell yourself you're confident. Tell yourself you're a run scorer. Tell yourself you're fearless. But here's the problem. Most players don't believe it. You're saying the words, but deep down, that little voice on your shoulder, better known as self-talk, is going, no, you're not. Remember your last innings? Remember that low score you got? Remember the duck you got? Who do you really think you are? You're not that good. That's why so many cricketers think affirmations are a waste of time. But the truth is, affirmations can work and they do work if you first understand how the mind really operates. So stick around, because in this video, I'll show you why affirmations often fail and a smarter way to rewire belief that actually sticks, and the exact affirmation that helped me score centuries when scoring 100 felt so far out of reach. This is the foundation of your mental game. You get this right and everything else becomes easier. But before we talk about affirmations, you need to understand the three parts of your mind that actually control that. Firstly, the conscious mind. This is your thinking brain. It analyzes, makes decisions, and talks to you all day long. But it can only juggle a few thoughts at once. Under pressure, it gets completely overloaded. Too many tabs open, they say. And that's when doubt creeps in. Second is your subconscious mind. This is your muscle memory. Every net session you have, every shot you've repeated thousands of times lives here. When you're playing freely, this is what's running the show, because you're not consciously thinking, you're now in flow. And lastly, there's the creative subconscious mind. This is the protector of your identity. Its entire job is to keep you consistent with who you believe you are. If your self-image says, I only score 20s, then even if you're capable of more, it will quietly steer your behavior back in line with that belief. And here's the kicker. It doesn't care if the belief is positive or negative. It just defends whatever's there as your self-image. That's why identity is everything in cricket. You won't outperform the picture you hold of yourself for very long. So, when you stand there saying, I am confident, I score centuries, I love pressure, but deep down your self-image doesn't buy it, your creative subconscious shuts it down. It's like trying to tell a world-class soccer goalkeeper that they're actually a striker. They'll laugh at you because it doesn't line up with their identity. Affirmations fail when that leap is too far ahead of what you currently believe. And that's why players feel silly repeating them. It's not because affirmations don't work, it's because they're trying to build a house with no foundation. I mean, think about the gym. If someone hasn't exercised for years and years and suddenly they decide they're going to go to the gym 5 times a week, their brain's going to say, yeah, nah, that ain't going to happen. Yeah, they might last a week, maybe 2, but eventually the gap between who they think they are and who they're trying to be catches up with them. So instead, they might say, I'm going to go to the gym twice a week. Now that's a stretch. It's believable, and they can build on that. Affirmations are no different. They fail when the leap is too big, but they succeed when they stretch your self-image just enough to pull you forward without snapping you back. One way to sidestep that rejection is to ask questions instead of making statements. And so instead of saying, I am a century maker, you might ask, why do I score big runs when it matters most? So instead of saying, I am calm under pressure, you might ask, why do I stay so calm under pressure? The moment you ask, your brain goes searching for answers. It's wired that way. It hates unanswered questions. Now, this also taps into your reticular activating system, or your RAS. Your RAS filters information based on what you focus on. So if you ask, why do I adapt so quickly? Your RAS digs up every bit of evidence it can find. Past innings, good training sessions, even little moments of composure, and pulls them to the front. Questions don't trigger resistance, they trigger curiosity. And curiosity is a much better path to building belief. When I first started using affirmations, I couldn't see myself scoring 100. That was way too far out and beyond my self-image. So my first ever affirmation was this: scoring 50 runs makes me feel important to the team and strives me on to be consistent. Now, why 50, you might say? Because 50 was a stretch for me. I hadn't been doing it regularly, but it wasn't out in the distance either. My creative subconscious could accept it. And once I started hitting 50s, my self-image shifted. Suddenly, 100 didn't seem that far out of reach. That's the stretch principle. For example, don't try to jump from, say, 0 to 5 gym sessions in a week. Don't try to jump from scraping to your 20s to claiming you're a century machine. Stretch yourself, get to 50, build the evidence, and then expand your identity again. So here's exactly how to make this work step by step at 3 levels. Level 1 is curiosity questions. Do this for the first 2 weeks. Pick 1 or 2 questions like, why do I settle so quickly? Or why do I focus so well one ball at a time? Ask them in the morning before a net session and ask them again at night. Then write down tiny bits of evidence that prove it's true. Even something small like, I reset well after a play and miss. That evidence becomes the fuel for belief. Level 2. We move to what I call stretch affirmations. So for weeks 3 to 5, turn those answers into stretch statements like, scoring 50 helps my team and builds my consistency. Or, I'm learning to bat with calm and intent every innings. Say them daily, run a short mental clip of you actually doing it. Now on match day, use them before you go out to bat, then back them up with a reset routine between balls. And finally, level 3. These are identity statements, week 6 onwards. When the stretch feels normal, lock it in with identity. Say things like, I am calm and focused under pressure, or I am a batsman who builds big scores. Repeat them morning and night. Anchor them to a physical cue, like touching your glove, taking your pads, and let your creative subconscious defend that new identity. This is the new you. Your creative subconscious is now going to defend that belief and not tear it down. That's the flow. It's questions, then stretch, then the new identity. Each stage builds on the last until your new belief becomes who you really are at the crease. And this isn't just theory. You see it everywhere. David Warner, even after lean patches, walked out with strut and intent. That's not arrogance. That's his self-image carrying him, because that's his belief. Pujara from India doesn't define himself by scoring quickly. His self-image is rock solid as the man who can bat forever. That belief drives his entire game. And Ben Stokes, the head down, fight through identity is his. That's not there by accident. It's cultivated self-talk and belief reinforced over years. And outside cricket, look at anyone who's ever started a journey of success. The ones who succeed aren't the ones who try and overhaul their whole life in 1 week. They start with small, believable steps, they stretch, build evidence, then expand again. Belief in cricket or in life grows exactly the same way. So do affirmations work? Yeah, you bet they do. But not if you start too big, too fast. They only work when you respect how the mind actually functions. So start with questions, build with statements that stretch your current belief, and then lock it in with identity affirmations. That's how you rewire belief. That's how you go from doubt to curiosity, to belief to identity. And that's when confidence shows up ball after ball. Be honest. How many times have you been 20 not out and suddenly, instead of pushing on, you get out. It's not bad luck. It's not your technique. It's your comfort zone, and it's quietly killing your batting. Because if you don't learn how to break out of it, you'll keep living that same pattern, making starts, but never going on. But once you do, your game changes. You stop surviving and you start building an innings. And I know that pattern all too well, because for years, that was me. I had the shots, I trained hard, but deep down, I saw myself only as a great fieldsman and a guy who could bat a bit. That was my comfort zone, and I lived there for years. Then something unexpected happened. Back when I worked at the bank, we went through a major merger, and as part of the change management training, I was introduced to this information about how the mind actually works. The conscious mind, subconscious mind, and the creative subconscious mind, and how your self-image quietly runs the show. That training just didn't change how I approached work, it changed how I played my cricket. Because once I understood that your performance can never rise consistently above your self-image, everything clicked. I stopped trying to fix my technique and started fixing the image I had of myself as a batsman. And the difference was huge. Suddenly I wasn't just hoping to get through the first few overs, I expected to. There's a big difference right there. I wasn't trying to survive, I was trying to build an innings, and that's when the runs came. When I was younger, my comfort zone in cricket wasn't as a batsman. It was being seen as a great fieldsman and just a guy, who could bat a bit. That was my label, and I accepted it because, who was I to challenge my belief? But something shifted in my life outside of cricket. As I mentioned before, I was working in the banking industry and we were going through a merger. Stress levels were sky high, people were uncertain about their future, and the pressure was real. So it was during that time that I was exposed to the information about how the mind actually works. Now, I mentioned before, conscious mind, subconscious mind, and the creative subconscious mind, and how they work to build your identity. I started applying those ideas to the way I handled the merger. So instead of just surviving, I began to grow through it. I changed the way I thought, and it completely changed the way I performed at work. But here's a light bulb moment. I took that same mindset back to my cricket, and suddenly I realised that being just a fielder who could bat a bit wasn't reality. It was just a belief. It was my comfort zone, and I had the power to step out of it. And once I did, my batting changed. I stopped playing safe. I stopped settling for starts. I started building a new identity, not just as a guy who could bat a bit, but as a batsman who could contribute, who could dominate. That shift didn't just improve my cricket, it changed how I saw myself as a player and as a person. Here's the truth about comfort zones. Most players think they're about safety, but really, they're about stagnation. Picture your comfort zone like a shadow. Every time you step forward into something uncomfortable, the shadow stretches and grows with you. But every time you step back into safety, the shadow shrinks. And here's the kicker. Your creative subconscious mind is working overtime to keep you in that shadow. Its whole job is to protect your self-image and have you act as you believe yourself to be. If you believe you're a 20-run batsman, your creative subconscious will make decisions to keep you there, not because it's evil, but because it thinks it's keeping you safe. That's why you'll find yourself blocking balls you should hit or leaving balls you should hit, avoiding training drills that stretch you, or telling yourself, I'll just wait until next week to change things. That's comfort zone thinking, and it keeps you stuck. Let me give you a couple of examples. So firstly, in cricket, look at Marnus Labuschagne. When he first broke into the Australian side, he could have played it safe, just trying to fit in, but he didn't. Every innings he stretched himself, whether it was leaving well outside of off stump or fighting through some tough spells, or playing with sheer intent. That's why his game expanded so quickly. Now, outside of cricket, think about learning to play the guitar. At first, it feels awkward. Your fingers don't move right and everything sounds a bit clunky. If you stick to only a few chords that feel comfortable to you, you'll never improve. But if you push yourself to learn one new chord, one new strumming pattern, it feels rough at first, but soon it becomes normal. That's the stretch zone. Now, the comfort zone trap is the same in cricket. If you only ever do what feels safe, you'll stay stuck at the same level. But if you stretch just a little beyond it consistently, your comfort zone grows with you. So let's talk about how to actually escape the trap. The first step is awareness. Notice when you're avoiding shots, avoiding training drills, or when you've settled into survival mode. That's your red flag that you're in your comfort zone. Step 2, select your new stretch zone. This isn't about doing something crazy or unachievable. It's about one deliberate stretch. For example, it might be, today at training, I'll look to rotate the strike earlier, even in a match. Or in training, I'll face a bowler who rushes me. It's just beyond safe, but it's not fantasy either. Step 3, test and reflect. Once you've picked your stretch area, put it into action in a match or in a net session. Then reflect on it afterwards. Don't just ask, did I score runs? Ask, did I grow? Did I take one step beyond safety? And lastly, expand again. Every time you stretch, your shadow grows. Your comfort zone expands. Do it often enough, and what once felt uncomfortable becomes the new normal. And that's how belief is built. And this is the exact kind of work we go deep on inside my 6-week mentoring batting program. It's not about hype or empty motivation. It's about building belief step by step. So your comfort zone keeps expanding until you're playing with freedom and intent every innings. So here's today's takeaway. You're not meant to stay safe. You're meant to grow. And growth only happens outside of your comfort zone. If you don't step outside of your comfort zone, nothing changes. But remember how that mind works. Your creative subconscious is going to try and get you back to where you're comfortable. That's its job. It's challenging, I know, but it's also very, very achievable. Look, drop a comment below and tell me, where do you think your comfort zone is holding you back right now? You know that moment when you play a bad shot and your brain just won't let it go? You're replaying it in your head over and over, beating yourself up thinking, what was that shot? What am I doing? Like, I know better than that. Then the next ball comes and bang, you're gone. That's not the bowler winning. That's your mind overthinking. Every batsman trains their shots, their technique and their fitness, but hardly anyone trains what to do after a mistake. And yet, that single moment, the few seconds after something goes wrong, decides whether you recover or unravel. As a batsman, cricket is really all about one ball at a time. So in this video, I'm going to show you why your brain spirals after a mistake, how the pros reset faster than anyone else, and the quick 3-step reset routine you can use between balls to instantly get you back in control. This one skill, resetting, is one of the biggest separators between players who crumble and players who stay calm and build a solid innings. Because when you can reset quickly, you don't waste energy on frustration. You move on and straight back into 100% focus. So let's start with why this happens. When you make a mistake, you play a rash shot or miss a straight one, or even get dropped in slips, your conscious mind goes into overdrive. It starts analysing, judging, and replaying the event like a broken record. You're saying to yourself, why'd that happen? Was my back foot not in the right spot? Did that move off the wicket? And so on. Now, I'm pretty sure you've had this happen to you. At the same time, your body reacts. Your heart rate spikes, your breathing shortens, cortisol floods your system. That's your fight or flight response. And here's the problem. You can't bat properly when your body thinks it's in danger. Your fine motor skills, the delicate control you need for timing, disappears. So the key is not avoiding mistakes, it's learning to disrupt that downward spiral. That's what a proper reset routine does. So let's look at how elite players handle this. So when Kane Williamson edges one past the slips, you'll notice something real subtle. He immediately walks away. He adjusts his gloves, takes a slow breath, and looks down at the pitch before returning to his stance. That's not superstition. That's a physical reset cue. It was the same with Steve Waugh back in the day. The moment he felt tension, he'd walk down the pitch, tap his bat, and refocus on the next ball. Every movement had one purpose: to return to the present moment. Tennis players do this brilliantly too. Rafael Nadal would reset before every serve with the same routine, touching the clothes, everything. So he's not being obsessive. He's telling his mind that this point really matters. And that's what you need between every ball yourself, a system that works. So here's what I teach. It's simple, it's powerful, and it works at every level. Step 1, release the mistake. You have to physically let go of the last ball. That means don't stand there staring at the pitch or shaking your head. Take a short step away from the crease, unhook your gloves or restrap them, like Davey Warney does or used to do. Give your body a signal that the previous movement or moment is done and dusted. It's in the past. It's gone. Your brain loves symbols, so use one. When you physically reset, your mind follows. So pair that with a movement or a phrase. It might be, that ball's done. It's simple. It's over. Step 2, re-anchor to the present. Next, you need to get out of your head and back into your body. Take a deep, steady breath. Feel your feet on the ground. This brings your focus away from the mistake and back into the present now. And this is where your RAS, your reticular activating system, kicks in. When you focus on your breathing, or taking a breath, and your next intention, your brain filters out distractions automatically. That's why players who appear calm aren't emotionless. They've just built the habit of anchoring themselves back in the present moment. Step 3, refresh your intention. Before you face the next ball, give your mind a single, clear task, not a dozen thoughts, just one, something like watch the ball or be still. That one phrase directs your focus. It replaces judgment with intention, and it keeps your subconscious free to perform what it's trained to do. Because your intention, once it's set, you don't need to try anymore. You just learn to need to trust. So let's look at some of the players and how this plays out. When Meg Lanning captained Australia, one of her biggest strengths was how quickly she could move on. She'd play a false shot, she'd smile, tap her gloves, and then you could literally see her reposition herself and reset. That wasn't confidence, it was a trained emotional skill. Or take Babar Azam. In his 196 against Australia in Karachi, he survived an early edge and he didn't flinch. He looked up, he breathed, he smiled slightly, and he reset. That's 10 hours of batting built on emotional control. Now here's the science behind it. Every time you use a reset routine, you're training your creative subconscious to prioritize calm over chaos. You're building a new automatic response to stress. At first, it'll feel awkward and a bit mechanical, but with repetition, it becomes instinct. It becomes your identity. And once it's instinct, you no longer need to get calm. You just need to stay calm. That's why the best players look composed no matter what. They've wired their nervous system for recovery, not reaction. So here's your challenge for this week. In your next session or match, pick your own reset cue. It could be restrapping the gloves, touching the bat sticker, walking out and touching the side of the crease, tapping the side of the crease. Now, the action doesn't really matter. It's the meaning behind it. That's what's really important. Then add, say, your one-line anchor. It could be something like, that ball's gone. Next one. Or as I said before, be still. Run that loop after every ball, good or bad, because resetting after a mistake is powerful, but resetting after a success is elite. That's how consistency is built, ball by ball. So remember this, you don't need to play perfectly. You just need to recover perfectly, because mistakes don't end in innings. Reactions do. If this video helped you, share it with a teammate who that gets stuck replaying bad shots. And if you want to go deeper into routines and identity and belief, you can join my 6-week cricket mindset mastery program or the 6-week video mastery series, which does include 2 one-on-one calls with me. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to head over to my website and grab your free ebook on how to make a century. Links are down below in the description. And before you go, check out my video on baseball and see what mindset the English cricket team are bringing to this year's Ashes. It's going to be pretty exciting. So until next week, bye for now.